The bridge was older than the colony itself, a sweep of pale ferroglass spanning the Royal, a river that boiled with methane mist and sang in low, organ-deep notes when the wind crossed its skin. All night the fog would rise, eating the lights, swallowing sound and nerve. The Allied battalion had already fallen back to the ridge. Sensors said the enemy would arrive before midnight. Mara Chan checked the charge on her coil rifle and swallowed the taste of copper behind her tongue. Evacuation status. Last convoy rolling, came command's reply over the whisper-thin comm. 600 refugees and medics still crossing. We need 6 hours. Copy. She looked down the arcade of arches, at the glass deck crazed with hairline fractures. The idea of leaving it, of letting the enemy flood across, pressed on her like a hand on the back of the neck. Lieutenant, said Quartermaster Rel, a Celt with frilled cheeks and eyes like wet stone. No one can hold this bridge in the fog. Not at night. Mara considered the barricades. Knee-high, slag-welded slabs and wire. Someone has to. She touched the dog-eared patch stitched inside her gauntlet. A faded family crest, a stylized river and a span. Her father had built bridges on old Earth, teaching her that a bridge is a promise. From here to there, from danger to safety. Fall back with us, Rel urged. Get them across, Mara said. I'll buy your 6 hours. Rel's frills tightened. He clasped her forearm, then turned and trotted into the blur, vanishing into the milky dark like a figure painted over with fog. She worked. She laid staccato rows of smart mines along the midspan where the arches bowed shallowest. She mag-clamped monofilament trip lines, mapped crossfire lanes on her visor, and clipped 4 tiny beacons to the rail so her drone, Hopper, could find home in the soup. The bridge hummed underneath, wind striking its bones. When the first enemy probes came nosing out of the fog, low, scuttling shapes with red eyes, she was ready. The coil rifle bucked, a clean blue-white crack. The probes popped and pinned like fireflies. Hopper dropped a string of countermeasures that popped louder, flaring hot in the mist, confusing infrared. Probes fell away. First contact, she told command. Testing the edges. Copy. 2 transports still on the ramp. 4 hours 40. The fog thickened, pressing close, damp in the throat. Somewhere below, the river sang. Mara crouched behind the central barricade and breathed through the cold. She hadn't been afraid of the night since she was a child. Her father had taken her onto a construction girder at midnight, both of them in harness, and pointed to the dark city river. Bridges don't care about fear, he'd said. They care about load. She smiled into the fog. I can carry load, she whispered. The real attack hit at 017, a surge of shadow and noise, shaped charges flaring at the far pylons as if dawn had arrived in a single violent breath. Figures poured forward. Sleek VYR shock troops in flex plates, sniper bugs that clicked and stitched tracer, a walking tower hauling a battering device like a church bell. Mara triggered the first line of mines, and the bridge rang with glassy thunder. Cables twanged. The viewer didn't stop. Course they didn't. They'd measured this span months ago. They'd mapped the stress. They knew a bridge that old shouldn't survive waves of kinetic force at this frequency, at this temperature. Mara changed the frequency. She ordered Hopper to land, jacked a fiber optic into the bridge's maintenance port, and on her visor opened a forgotten control schema. Half a century old and written by someone who treated structures like instruments. She bled power from the western pylons, fed it to the eastern ones, and tuned the bridge's vibration to a new, sharp resonance. When the VYR's battering device struck, the sound didn't rattle outwards. It sang back into the machine. Its armature snapped, toppled into the fog. 3 hours 50, command said, voice thin. Are you still holding? A viewer officer stepped out of the mist with a white flag made of metal strips that chimed softly. He removed his helmet. His face was tattooed in delicate loops. Human, he called in passable trade. Lay down. You are alone. Mara stood, coil rifle slung. Yes, she said. And you are late. He smiled with too many teeth. Night is ours. Not tonight. They fought without banners. The viewer charged, she cut them down. When they tried to crawl the understructure, she vented coolant and froze handholds to slick mirrors. When they fired blind through the fog, she fired smarter, counting seconds between flares to triangulate muzzle flashes. Twice she had to move forward, to kick a mine that hadn't armed over an inch so it would catch the next boot heel, to drag a wounded ally who'd refused to leave her. Rel's young assistant, who had crept back to help and made it 3 steps onto the span before a shard found his leg. Lieutenant, he gasped, blood threading into the fog. You said alone. We make do, she said, cinching a tourniquet and sending him back with a slap on his shoulder. Tell Rel he owes me tea. At 2:43 her rifle whined a flat warning. Coils overheated, barrel ablated. Ammo dwindled to hand-placed explosives and a pistol. The enemy slowed, the move changed. She could hear the viewer anchoring grapnels to the south tower, planning to bypass the span. Mart. She had been saving something for that. She removed the last demolition charge from her pack. It wasn't meant for enemies. It was meant for the bridge. An old demolition package for last resort collapse. She set it against the south tower's maintenance seam and keyed in a partial. A knee. If the viewer swung, the tower would flex. The charge would kick. The swing would become a fall. She tuned it to minimum necessary force. It's a promise, she told the span under her breath, and pressed her palm to the rail. Not a sacrifice. The grapnels sang tight. Viewer shapes swung into the fog like pendulums. The tower flexed. The charge coughed. 2 lines snapped. 1 fell. Others scrabbled back, hard metal claws screeching. 2 hours, command whispered. We're at 2. Mara smiled and let the fatigue roll over her like water over armor. She set Hopper to hover down the deck with a light that winked in a pattern. Left, right, pause, as if a squad were moving in step. She linked her comm to the valley speakers and played back recorded orders at random intervals in 4 different languages. Then she waited, crouched behind the barricade, pistol across her knees. In the heaviest hour of night, silence came. The VYR did not retreat. They waited too, sensing, calculating, hating what they could not see. Courage made ordinary by need. Dawn rose not as light but as color leaking back into the fog. First gray, then thin gold. The royal's song turned from organ to flute. When the mist thinned enough to sketch silhouettes, the viewer saw the truth. One woman with a slagged rifle and a pistol and a drone that drifted like a tired moth. They could have rushed her then. Behind her, on the ridge, the first sunbeam found a column of armor crawling back down the switchback. The evacuations were done. Marines came forward with shields like doorways and rifles with fresh coils. Rel was at their front, frills high and bright. The viewer officer lifted his chime flag again, pale and wavering in the new light. He inclined his head. "We will meet again," he called, and the viewer withdrew into the fog they loved.